Today on Central Illinois on the Record, leadership meets in Springfield. A look at what's next in the effort to end the budget stalemate. Plus, getting high school students college credit, how Illinois Central College is aiding an experiment to increase dual enrollment. And understanding bipartisanship, how Bradley University is teaching future leaders to reach across the aisle.
Now, from your local election headquarters, this is Central Illinois on the Record.
Welcome to Central Illinois on the Record. I'm Paul Cicchini. At least one lawmaker in Springfield says it could take years or even a new governor to pass a state budget. This as Illinois pays more than 90% of its bills by court order. It's paying them at higher levels than what it's taking in, meaning the longer this stalemate lasts, the higher the costs will be for you, the taxpayer, when it finally ends.
Yes, it would be best to have a budget. And yes, if the governor had worked with us and would work with us tomorrow, we could have a budget rapidly.
Democrats blame the governor's insistence on passing elements of his turnaround agenda for the delay, while Republicans say Rauner has been willing to negotiate from the beginning. The governor remains optimistic a budget will be signed by the end of May, which is the constitutional deadline for the state to pass a balanced budget. Governor Rauner says there are groups getting together to craft a budget. As Illinois closes in on 11 months without a 2016 spending plan, some lawmakers are looking at plans to combine budget proposals for both 2016 and 2017.
Will May 31st yield a grand compromise? I hope so. We're going to be working hard, and there's some momentum. Will it happen? I don't know. It may not. But what we'll never do is give up. What we got to do is help grow our economy.
Ideas include a possible income tax increase close to 5%. Now, if a budget is not passed by the end of May, by law, legislators will need a supermajority or 71 yes votes to pass the budget bill. The governor's reforms will finally be part of the budget negotiations with Democratic support. Tuesday's meeting did not create a budget plan, but may have brought both sides closer to compromise. House Speaker Michael Madigan agreed to move 3 of the governor's reforms forward, but he's not giving up on his own agenda either. The governor says he'll support new revenue with a possible tax increase. Leaders on both sides say they were pleased with that meeting.
That he was in favor of the concept of a tax increase to pay for the balance of the budget.
Those are the key to breaking the impasse. So I'm pleased that we're going to have a working group that's going to meet very quickly to take up those very issues.
Again, the constitutional deadline to pass a budget is May 31st, and that's for the budget for next year. A long-serving suburban lawmaker known to vote against his own party on big issues says he's not running for re-election. Representative Jack Franks will instead run for chairman of the McHenry County Board. Representative Adam Brown from Champaign and David Leach of Peoria are also not running for re-election. Franks says the legislature has changed and few lawmakers are stepping up to make a difference.
The General Assembly is broken, it's dysfunctional, and it's clear to me that both sides suffer under the delusion that it's okay that real people suffer as long as the other side gets blamed.
There are over 30 Democratic incumbents who face re-election in a district won by Governor Rauner in 2014. Automatic voter registration is one step closer to reality in Illinois. A bill that cleared the Senate with bipartisan support Thursday would register anyone with a license. Voter registrations would automatically be updated for anyone who changes their address. The bill is now headed to the House. The state reveals its new design for driver's licenses and IDs. Illinois needs to make changes to comply with federal guidelines. The new ID will have more security features. By the end of July, drivers will leave the DMV with a temporary paper driver's license. The real thing should arrive in the mail a couple weeks later.
If you go into a facility, however, right now, you will leave with the license that everyone else has seen and has. Where you will see a difference is in July and toward the end of July. By the end of July, all facilities should be transitioned to central issuance.
Because new IDs and licenses will be mailed, the Secretary of State's office will need your current address. Union members across the state are figuring out what's next after Governor Rauner vetoes an arbitration bill. The legislation would have removed him from contract negotiations and brought in an arbitrator. It would apply to failed labor talks, similar to the standoff between the governor and AFSCME, the union that represents some 38,000 state workers. The union claims Governor Rauner walked away from the bargaining table, but the governor says he's still negotiating despite what he calls their unaffordable demands. Rauner vetoed a similar bill last year. Police could soon have new restrictions on how much information they can get from your cell phone. A legislative proposal requires a warrant for police to use a Stingray device, which can trick your cell phone into thinking it's a cell tower, taking information from that device. Police will only be able to use it to track phone locations and will have to delete any non-pertinent information gathered. The bill cleared both houses unanimously and is headed to the governor's desk. Well, the state's chief investigator is under investigation. The State Board of Elections is reviewing Auditor General Frank Mautino's spending during his time as a state lawmaker. According to campaign records, Mautino spent more than $200,000 at a single gas station in his district. That would be more than $18,000 a year. Mautino's campaign spokesperson confirmed they are cooperating with the U.S. Attorney. The State Board of Elections asked Mautino to explain the expenditures back in July 1st.
This isn't a partisan issue. I think everyone should be concerned about issues like this. For far too long in Illinois, we've seen a litany of public officials that have had problems with the law, and so I think Frank needs to own up to this. I think he needs to answer some questions.
Even though there is a federal investigation, it does not mean charges will follow. Former House Speaker Dennis Hastert must report to prison by June 22nd. Hastert was sentenced to 15 months behind bars for banking crimes committed while he was trying to hide sex abuse tied to his time as a high school teacher and wrestling coach. The judge also told Hastert he should participate in a sex offender treatment program. Lawmakers are making another attempt to reopen the Illinois State Museum. The latest effort comes as the deadline to maintain its accreditation is approaching. The building must remain open for at least 1,000 hours this summer in order to retain its status. Sponsors of the new bill say they've simplified it by removing the creation of a private foundation for the museum. This bill will let the Department of Natural Resources charge an admission fee for the first time. Offering new opportunities to high school students, how Illinois Central College is part of a pioneering program dealing with dual enrollment. But up next, a former board chair off the ballot. Our local parties are preparing to fill the void. A former McLean County Board chairman is off the November ballot. Matt Sorensen resigned in January after he was brought up on federal fraud charges. But he won the Republican primary for his board seat in February because he did not take his name off the ballot in time. Now that his name will not appear on the general election ballot, the McLean County Republican Party has said it will put a new candidate's name on the ballot. The party has until August to choose someone else. The Democratic Party is considering a candidate to run for the seat as well and has until the end of May to decide. A third party or independent candidate can also put his or her name on the ballot before June. Incoming McLean County Board members should not expect a pay raise anytime soon. The board decided last week to deny a recommended 2% annual raise for board members elected in November. Instead, the board voted to freeze salaries for the next 4 years. Executive members chosen by the board this fall will not see a raise through 2020. Board members already serving their terms through 2018 will receive a pay increase. The board did approve annual raises for the county coroner, circuit clerk, and county auditor. The city of Bloomington will be part of a new nationwide health initiative.
Health issues arise because the whole structure of the community is not working to improve the individual's health.
Bloomington is one of 50 cities chosen for a $60,000 Invest Health grant. The money will be used over the next 18 months to help city leaders improve health outcomes in underserved and low-income areas. Several health groups from the area will collaborate for the project, including both Advocate Broman Medical Center and OSF St. Joseph Hospital, the United Way, and the health department, as well as the city.
By bringing everyone together, we can really make some substantial changes, that we would not be able to make individually as organizations by ourselves. I think it takes all of us working together.
The planning team will travel to national conferences to learn from other communities. By the end of the program, leaders hope to have action plans ready to implement, like easy access to health care and grocery stores with healthy food in underserved areas. Teaching students to reach across the aisle, how Bradley University is helping young leaders understand bipartisanship. But up next, Illinois Central College is picked for an experimental study, how it will impact high school students collecting college credit.
You're watching Central Illinois on the Record.
All right, welcome back. We're joined by the interim president of Illinois Central College, Bruce Budde. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Now, we're talking about dual enrollment and a pilot program that ICC is taking part in with the Department of Education, a little bit different from traditional dual enrollment.
Sure. And really what this does, it expands the first time that we would have access to, or students would have access to Pell funding and support for the dual enrollment or dual credit options that we offer at the high schools. So it really extends this back. It's really driven to help provide for those socioeconomic challenged folks that may not have access to higher education. And I think statistically it shows that if we can engage the students in college level coursework even sooner, and those that are prepared to do that, if we can engage them earlier in the high school, and in some cases the students may actually come to the college while they're still in high school. So there's a combination of things, where it's dual credit and dual enrollment, but essentially we're trying to extend and reach in, really align with what is happening at the high school level. In those students that are really prepared and ready to move on and accelerate into college level coursework, we want to be able to extend that opportunity into the high school.
Well, it seems more important now more than ever before, because of the rising cost of college, that if you are a young person in high school, it is an opportunity to get a jump start on your higher education, that this is a good way to do it.
Absolutely. From a financial standpoint, and really what we're going to look at, this is directed to those folks that need additional financial assistance, but it really helps us change the entire model and how we offer dual credit and dual enrollment in the high schools. And it creates the conversation as well with all these districts. And for us, we have 30 districts that roll into our, or they're included in our district. And so it's a very important conversation. And we talk about alignment and pathways, and you hear that from Peoria Public Schools, but we talk about it with Pekin and Dunlap and all the other schools that we support and serve too. What can we do to integrate tighter and closer with that and with their curriculum? So these are the students that we know that are ready for college level coursework. And what it's going to do, it changes the cost model, I believe, even for those that are accessing financial aid, whether federal or state, as they come in, because now they're coming in as freshmen, as sophomore, whether it transfers to Illinois Central College or whether you transfer to another transfer organization or another four-year school, private or public. This is transcripted, it's coming in, so that you're really getting a jump start and saving dollars, essentially.
The last question I have is how, what this means for ICC, because there are not very many schools across the country that are able to take part in this particular program.
Correct, correct. And we were one of 44 schools in the nation selected in 21 states. So it's a privilege, it's an honor for us to do this. And I think we were selected because we have the capacity to deliver. And I think what the process is, again, it's a pilot study. So we know we're going to be able to extend that financial aid to those students that are of need. But for us, we're changing the whole business model, how we're delivering dual credit and dual enrollment. And I think we're building then a case to say that if we continue to extend this, the dollars that we're spending, actually if we can cut, to your point earlier, if we can eliminate the student loans or minimize that impact on student loans, if we can make it more efficient for those students to get through the system, they complete sooner and more efficiently, and certainly with a lower cost point as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Bruce Budde is the interim president at Illinois Central College. Still to come, school leaders call on parents and students to take action, why they could be key to ending the budget crisis. But first, teaching bipartisan leadership, how a program at Bradley University is shaping future leaders.
You're watching Central Illinois on the Record.
All right, welcome back. Joining me from Bradley University, Brad McMillan and William Bessler, the Political Science Student of the Year and local school board member. Yes. Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it. All right, so we're talking about bipartisan leadership, and it's a program that you're in charge of. What is it exactly?
Well, the Institute for Principal Leadership in Public Service at Bradley has been teaching the bipartisan leadership course for 9 years at Bradley University. And it's based on the foundation of leaders that have come out of Central Illinois: Everett Dirksen, Bob Michael, Ray LaHood. And it's our view that it's a specific style of leadership that is sorely missing both in Washington, D.C. And Springfield, Illinois. And what's interesting is these students are in a generation where all they've seen is the partisan bickering. And so when they look back historically at some of the examples of where bipartisan leadership has worked well, a light goes on. Yeah. And they understand there's a different way of approaching leadership.
What's your biggest takeaway from the coursework that you were involved with?
I think bipartisan leaders form relationships with people on the opposite side. It's okay to have disagreements, that's fine. It's what our system is designed for. And our system is designed for compromise. And bipartisan leaders look for compromise, look for areas to compromise, and they build relationships to execute that. What we've seen over the past, my entire lifetime, 22 years, has been bickering over unimportant issues, not building relationships, and really not focusing on long-term solutions to our most pressing problems. And I think a class like this is extremely important for my generation, especially because it's really up to us. Kicking the can down the road is no longer an option. We have to do something.
You know, the one issue that always comes to mind, at least is when it comes to federal government, is road funding. It was always a bipartisan issue, something that you just did because it was almost a guaranteed job creator and an economic booster. You can't agree on that now. So how do you help shape young people to show them that bipartisanship is still possible?
Well, the two books they read were The Long Hard Furrow, which was Everett Dirksen's role in the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and then Ray LaHood's new book on seeking bipartisanship. And actually, former Secretary LaHood came in and talked exactly about transportation funding to the students.
Something he knows a little bit about.
He knows a lot about.
Secretary.
Yeah, and so it is sad that on the simplest of public policy issues like road funding, that we can't pass a sensible long-term transportation bill. And again, Secretary LaHood specifically talked about how difficult that was and how unfortunate that was.
Now, I imagine that it's not as simple as, okay, look at what they're doing in Washington, D.C., don't do that.
No, and you know, what I think the students learned is that bipartisanship takes hard work. It takes relational connection on a regular basis, and I don't know if you can add to that.
Yeah, I think that really what we have to do as this generation is we have to become bipartisan leaders. Like I said before, there is no option for us to kick the can down the road like previous generations. We have to act. And I think having some of the guest speakers like former Secretary Ray LaHood, Brian Spain, Dave Kaler, they really showed us what bipartisan leadership is like. And I think that this generation has the potential to become another bipartisan generation, but it's up to us to execute that.
How do you take what you've learned in the classroom to your leadership role in the community?
I think that this class taught more than anything else how to build relationships and how to get along. It's okay to disagree. Look, there's going to be two political sides in this country, and that's fine. That's perfect. Brad's on one side, I'm on the other. And I have Republican friends, I have Democratic friends, and that's fine. We have disagreements, but at the end of the day, I know that future leaders that were in that class with me, we can work together in the future to make long-term solutions because we have the relationships built, we're respectful. And I think another issue that we haven't seen in recent years at the state or the federal level is civility. Everything is a zero-sum game. It's win or lose. Defeat the other side, and that's just not a way to build long-term solutions to our problems.
You answered my next question. What I was going to ask, what do you think is the biggest obstacle? But you say civility. What would your answer be, Brad?
I believe that we've forgotten how to listen and how to sit around a table. You know, the truth is neither political party has a lock on wisdom. And
Don't tell them that.
And that you can learn a lot from listening to others. And that's what Bob Michel did, that's what Everett Dirksen did, that's what Ray LaHood did. And you know, we've always had this legacy of bipartisan leadership, both at the federal and state level out of Central Illinois. And what I tell the public think tank leaders out in Washington, D.C., is that we have to figure out how to develop a new generation of leaders that understand bipartisan leadership. And they're starting to listen.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here today from Bradley University, Brad McMillan and William Fessler. All right. Thanks again, guys. All right. Still to come, keeping homes free of lead, how the Galesburg Council is taking action to keep your drinking water safe. And the cuts continue amid the budget crisis, what school leaders are telling parents and students about their district's financial futures. 9 superintendents in Knox County are searching for solutions to their financial problems while the state budget breakdown continues with no end in sight. Parents, students, and teachers filled Knoxville High School Tuesday night to hear superintendents discuss how the budget impasse has affected their districts and what could happen in the future. Galesburg's superintendent says they've already cut more than $3 million. Without help from the state, the district could face more losses next year, including cutting teachers and programs. One recent Galesburg graduate says she hopes future students will get the same education she did.
For some people, the numbers are just numbers, you know. When you come intact with the actual changes and the risks that are at stake with the budget cuts being made, it's kind of scary.
Students and parents are being asked to call their local lawmakers to share how the budget stalemate is affecting them. Galesburg is in the midst of a water study after City Council approved a corrosion control study Monday night. The $36,000 project would give the city new options to treat the water to decrease lead exposure. The city uses phosphate to coat water lines to keep the lead out. The city expects to have the results within the next 4 months. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Central Illinois on the Record. Of course, you can stay in touch with us using social media. Connect with CIOTR and me on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag CIOTR. And we'll see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of WMBD, WIZZ, or Nexstar Broadcasting Group.